What's going on everyone, and welcome to part 3 of tutorial series on AWS Audio Analysis. In the previous tutorial we have created all the resources with respect to the architecture diagram, and in this tutorial we are going to set up the Lambda function to create the transcription job on S3 bucket trigger, and we are going to upload the same or the transcribe file to the S3 bucket. So let's get started. So I have already navigated to the Lambda management console and opened the AWS Audio Analysis Lambda function that we have created in the previous tutorial, right? And yes, today we are going to write some code within the Lambda function here, right? So let's get started. So let's start with importing the libraries, right? So we will require JSON, we will require time, Boto3, and URL lib. Should be from URL lib import URL lib dot request import URL open. We can also use request library here, but for that we need to add an additional package, right? Because request does not come inbuilt with Python, right? So that's the reason we are using URL lib, or you can also use request if you want, but all you have to add an additional package over here. So these are the list of libraries that we are going to use today, right? And if you remember, then we have set up the trigger on this Lambda function, right? So the initial code will be of trigger, right? So if event file underscore object equal to event of records of 0, right? Then the bucket name, that also we are going to fetch it from the trigger itself, right? So it will be string of file object of S3 bucket. I think I made a mistake here. So yeah, here it is. Right. So here we will get the bucket name, then we will require the file name, right? So just to take the note here, while we create the transcription job, we are not passing the file from here, but instead we are passing the S3 bucket URI of that file, right? So that's the reason we'll be creating the S3 bucket URI, and to create the URI, we will require bucket name, file name, right, and the file type. So yeah, file name is string of file object again, S3 object. So this is something I have created, I have covered in one of the previous tutorial in AWS Lambda tutorial playlist, right? So this is nothing but the reading a file from an S3 bucket tutorial that I have did earlier, right? So object key. Now we are going to create one function here just to return the S3 bucket URI, right? So I'll say define create underscore URI. So we will pass two parameters, that is bucket name and file name itself, right? And we'll say return S3 colon / concatenation operator followed by the bucket name / and followed by the file name, right? So it will create an S3 bucket URI of the file that we will pass in the transcription job. So we'll come to that part, right? So now we have bucket name, file name. Now we can fetch the URI, right? So s3 underscore URI equal to, we'll call that function, right? And we'll pass the bucket name and file name as the parameter. So now we have the S3 bucket URI. Now we also have to pass the file type, right? So transcribe accepts MP3, MP4, WAV, right? So we need to specify that which file we are passing, which type of file we are passing, right? So we'll say file type equal to file name dot split by dot, and we will pick up the file extension that will be in the second index, right? So here we have file type. Now transcribe requires unique job name each time, right? So for example, if we have created the transcription job with the name J1 or the job 1, then we cannot create another job with the same name like job 1, right? So it's going to throw an error. So for that we need to define the unique job name each time, right? So what we'll do is we will fetch the job name from context dot AWS underscore request underscore ID, right? So this is basically UUID 4, right? uh, that we can get in the context, right? So context is coming from here, right? So now we have defined everything. Now we will, oh, we missed two things, right? So we are required to define the object for transcribe and S3 bucket, right? So transcribe equal to photo3 dot client transcribe, same for S3 bucket, right? So it's nothing but the photo3 object, photo3 transcribe object and S3 bucket object, right? So now we will create the transcription job, right? And we will pass certain parameters that is required, right? So we'll say transcribe dot start, start transcription job. I hope I am not making a spelling mistake here. Transcription job, okay. So the first parameter is the job name, right? So let's transcription job name, right, equal to job name, right? So what I will do is I will just save this function in case if I lose access to this code. Yeah. So now we have the job name, right? Then we will require media, right? So as I said, we have to pass the S3 bucket URI here. So media and then media file URI. So I think we can also pass the file. So let's have a look at documentation. So we'll say transcribe go to 3 doc, right? Start underscore transcription job. So here we are, right? So we have media. So what all we can pass in media? Yeah, so it's an S3 bucket URI itself. We cannot pass the file right now. So I was correct. So media file URI, right? Maybe I will copy from here. So I make sure that I am not making any spelling mistake, right? Followed by the S3 underscore URI, right? So that is something we will get here. Now after that we have media format, right? Media format equal to the file type, right? Then we have language code, again that is mandatory, right? Language code, so we'll say English US, right? So yeah, that's all with the parameters, right? But apart from that, we have other parameters that we can pass on. So if we look at here, we have sample rate, media format that we have passed, media we have passed, output bucket name, right? So right now, what Transcribe will do is it will upload in the service bucket, right? So it's not something that is custom bucket, right? But if we want to store the transcription in the custom bucket, then we can pass the output bucket name, right? But it has some caveats, right? So that is something I will discuss in the next tutorial, right? Apart from that, we have settings. We can also pass on vocabulary name, then show speaker labels, right? So we need, if we want to split between two or more speakers, right? And then we have channel identification. So that's something you can pass, right? But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm not going to split the speakers or labels, right? So yeah, coming back to Lambda function, so we have defined the job here. Now we'll check the status, right? So while true, so this is because we will be querying the transcribe job, that whether it is completed or not, right? So it's a status transcribe dot get underscore transcription job, followed by the transcription job name equal to job underscore name, right? Now we will check the status, right? If status of trans oops, transcription job of transcription job status and completed or failed, then break this loop, okay? And till then we will print um, it's in progress, and maybe we will put time dot slip for 5 seconds, okay? Now once this condition will evaluate to true, right? So whenever our transcription job will be completed or failed, so it will break this loop, right? So once our job is completed, we are going to load the transcribed data from the pre-signed S3 bucket URL, right? So as I said, by default it stores the JSON file or the transcribe file in the service bucket, right? And it provides us the S3 bucket URL. So we can use that URL to load that transcribe data or file. So load URL equal to URL open status transcription job transcript, and here we will get transcript file URI, correct? Now once we load the URL, we are going to get the JSON data, right? So we'll say load JSON equal to JSON dot dumps followed by JSON dot load, right? We'll say load underscore URL, right? So why are we using JSON.load? Because we will get the file object within load underscore URL, correct? So that's the reason we will load that file object, and then we are going to upload this file to the S3 bucket. So this is something, we are not going to save this file, we are directly uploading the data to the S3 bucket, right? And we are going to create the file over there. So I had already covered this in one of the tutorials, that how to save the data or upload the data to the S3 bucket without saving into a file from a Lambda function. So s3.put object followed by the bucket name, bucket equal to bucket name, key equal to, so that will be our target folder or directory, right? So that is transcribe file. So I will copy that, forward slash followed by the file name. I will say dot json dot format, it's a job name, right? And the last parameter is the body, that is load underscore json, right? And we are going to save this function. Now post saving this function, we are going to test this function. So when I say test, we are going to drop the audio file into an S3 bucket, and this function will get triggered and it will save the transcribe JSON file into an S3 bucket, right? So before we move on, we have to increase this timeout to 5 minutes, right? So the reason we are increasing this timeout, because we are looping here through the status of the transcription job, that whether it is completed or not, or it is failed. So whatever status, right? So post the job is completed, we are loading the JSON file from the S3 bucket pre-signed URL, right? So the reason is that right now transcribe is saving this output in the service bucket, right? And it's only giving us access to that URL. So it will return the URL here, and we are going to load the JSON file or the transcribe text file here, and then we are uploading it back to an S3 bucket, right? So that's the reason we will require this Lambda function to execute few more minutes, right? So it might require that you have to increase this timeout to maybe maximum 15 minutes, right? It depends on the length of the audio file, correct? So now we have increased the timeout. So I will jump to the S3 management console, and I have this file 9 to 10 minutes file, that is basically the customer care conversation, correct? So I'm going to drop this file, upload. The once the file will be uploaded, it will trigger this Lambda function. So we'll jump to the CloudWatch logs just to see the status. So here we are. Yeah, here we go. So it's running, correct? So it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes to um, finish this transcription job. In the meantime, you can also jump to Amazon Transcribe and have a look whether the job is created or not, just to double check. Obviously it has. So here we are, it says it's in progress, correct? So it's going to take some time here. So maybe I will stop this, or maybe not, let it be. So here we have some limitation, correct? So limitation in terms of the AWS Lambda function limits, right? So for example, if we drop an audio of 1 hour, ideally the maximum limit of transcribe is 4 hours, 4 hours audio limit, right? So for example, if we drop the file with the 1 hour of audio, right, then this function is going to fail here. It's because, as I said, we are constantly looping through the status uh, of the transcription job, right? So since if the audio is larger, then obviously it's going to take more time to finish the job, right? And we have the limitation of the AWS Lambda function of 15 minutes timeout, right? And that's the reason it's going to fail here. So when I say fail, so the transcription job is not going to fail, but uploading that transcribe file back to the S3 bucket, since you are handling it here, that's going to fail, right? So that's the issue here, right? So that is something I'm going to discuss in the next tutorial, and how we can handle this, right? Wherever architecture diagram is going wrong, correct? So that is something I'm going to discuss in the next tutorial. So let's have a look if it is completed or not. So it's not, maybe few more seconds. Yeah, and here we go, it's completed successfully. So now we can go to S3 bucket and check our transcribe file folder, and as you can see, we have this JSON file. So let's go ahead and download this. So I will open this in Sublime. So here we go. So let me wrap this up. So as you can see, here is our transcribe file or the transcription, right? So I think that's it for now. So this is how you can set this up. You can find this code in my GitHub repo. I will post the link in the video description itself, right? So in the next tutorial, I'm going to discuss an issue with our current architecture and how we can overcome the same, right? Because AWS Transcribe also have one of the limitation, or maybe it's a feature that it does not support yet, right? So that is something we are going to discuss in the next tutorial. And yeah, that's it for now. So if you want me to do tutorial on any use case or any specific service, then please leave them below, and I will try my best to come up with the tutorial as soon as possible. And if you have any queries or comments, then please leave them below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and see you next time.